Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new report ranks Arizona as one of the least affordable states in the country. Also tonight, we'll hear about a first-of-its-kind study of monsoons. And a new one-woman play looks at the tension between who we present to the world and who we truly are. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A new report from the Common Sense Institute ranks Arizona as the 7th least affordable state in the country, with household costs increasing faster than the national average. Here to discuss the report is Katie Ratliff. She's Executive Director of the Common Sense Institute. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, 7th least affordable state. And were you surprised by that?
Sort of. You know, many people moved here 10, 20, even 30 or 40 years ago because Arizona was known as a very affordable place to live, high quality of life, low cost of living. But everyone has felt like that's changed lately. You've probably heard it from other guests, from your friends and neighbors. Things are just getting more expensive, and it's harder to get by on the same income in Arizona. And the data shows that's definitely true.
For this particular report, what kind of metrics, what kind of measurements?
The largest driver of affordability right now, and this is across the country, we saw this in all 50 states because we ranked, all 50 states and Washington, D.C., is housing. So the story of affordability is really a housing story. Housing costs have gone up 60% in Arizona since before the pandemic. That's really what's driving the lack of affordability here.
But there's other things as well, household costs, groceries, gas. I mean, it all adds up, doesn't it? Does it add up more here, though, than in other parts of the country?
Yes, that's why our ranking has actually dropped. So prior to the pandemic, we were ranked about 33rd, so about middle of the country, middle of the pack when it came to affordability. Now we're down to 45th, so one of the least affordable states. And we looked at 6 different buckets of goods and services. So housing, certainly the driver. But we also looked at gas, groceries, health insurance, car insurance, and childcare. And we adjusted everything for the relative tax burden and average income of each of those states as well.
When it comes to childcare and groceries, health insurance, these sorts of things, what's the reasoning? Why the increase, and why so much here as opposed to other parts of the country?
Some of it, there's not a lot we can do about. It just depends on supply chains, where we're located, things like groceries. Gas prices, we don't have much control over. A lot of our gas comes from California, and so policy decisions that are made in California impact us. With respect to childcare, we've seen dramatic increases in the cost of childcare in this state. It's gone up 42% since 2018. That's because we've lost half of our childcare providers over the last 20 years. So it's a simple supply and demand issue. As the supply has dropped, the prices have gone up.
So in that case, social services, or lack thereof, are impacting other aspects of the economy.
That's exactly right. And many of these are private child care providers who have simply gone out of business or haven't opened new locations because it's just gotten too expensive to do so.
When you mention housing, are you talking utilities? Is that factored into housing, or is that a separate silo there?
Utilities is factored into the costs of housing and the price of housing. But the largest driver of that housing cost is really just the cost of rent or a mortgage or the price of a home.
Yeah, and again, it sounds like supply not meeting increasing demand. I mean, is that what's happening here?
Yeah, it's not even close. I mean, when you think about Arizona at its most affordable time, kind of leading up to the Great Recession, a lot of people were moving here, but in the 5 years leading up to the Great Recession, we built 400,000 homes. So that supply was keeping pace with demand. In the 10 years following the recession, we only built 200,000 homes. So we slowed way down in building, but the number of people coming here has not slowed down.
Yeah. I know the Common Sense Institute talks about housing a lot, and I've seen your reports, and housing is mentioned almost every time. The impact of slow permitting, and again, I want to talk about that a little bit because it would seem as though permitting exists for a reason. Is it existing with a capital E as far as the report is concerned?
Well, we see a lot of policies like this that are well-intentioned. They were created for a reason, but over time, we sort of lose what that reason is, and it's just adding costs and time to the housing process, building a home. And what we've seen is it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So there are many counties in this state where the cities within that county will never issue enough permits to close their housing gaps if they continue at the current rate. They're just not building fast enough and issuing permits quickly enough to close that gap.
How do you balance, though? Because permits are kind of designed to slow things down, to make sure that, I's are dotted and T's are crossed in all manner, way, shape, and form. How do you balance that with getting more construction done?
I think you really have to look at what the goal is. Are you meeting the goal of what the permit was created to do? Was it intended just to slow things down and increase costs? Probably not. So I think it really requires policymakers at the state and city level, really at every level and across both parties, to roll up their sleeves and really understand what our goals are and how we can build more affordable homes for Arizonans, especially who are just getting started in life, who are starting families, to be able to afford to live here.
And again, it's probably a little bit away from the policy report, but water. Water is always a factor in everything, certainly a factor in housing. Is that playing as well in terms of what you're seeing as a big factor in this report and in our ranking?
It could be a factor. So certainly in some parts of Maricopa County, certainly in the West Valley, there has been a home building moratorium put in place by the governor because of her agency's view that there wasn't enough water. I believe a court has overturned that for the time being, but homes don't use a ton of water, so they're not a major driver in terms of our water shortages, especially when you take land that was agricultural and you build homes on it. That's what Phoenix has done over the last 60 to 70 years. That's why we use less water today than we did in the 1960s. So it's certainly something to keep an eye on, but it did not factor into our affordability ranking.
Interesting. Okay, so what do we take from this study? What do you want policymakers to take from this study?
I think policymakers need to continue their bipartisan efforts to find policy solutions to build more homes and increase the supply, and to fix the structural deficit that we've created in terms of housing in order to bring those prices down. And they need to get really creative when it comes to childcare. What are some creative ways we can incentivize new and different childcare options to open in this state?
Can policymakers do anything about the increase in car insurance and in health insurance?
It's certainly something to look at. It could be the result of certain car insurance or health insurance mandates that we have in this state that don't exist in other states. And there are other things that we can do to drive down, for example, the cost of health insurance. We recently did a study on the economic impact of smoking. We have we don't have a terribly high smoking rate in the general population. We have a very high smoking rate in our Medicaid population. So anything that policymakers can do to continue to incentivize smoking cessation may help there as well.
Katie Ratliff, again, Common Sense Institute Executive Director. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, so where to start of all the things?
Oh, it's like opening a present.
The team here are just incredible.
This is a cultural movement.
I feel so happy.
There is so much more.
It feels like the revolution has really begun.
Arizona PBS deeply appreciates every gift we receive, and we are proud to take this moment and recognize our Executive Society. These supporters believe in the mission of public media and are making a real impact in our community. If you would like to make an annual gift and join the Arizona PBS Executive Society, please call the number on your screen or visit azpbs.org/membership.
The
Yaotam were mostly farmers. We don't have like a war society. We had to transition into having a war society because of the enemies that were attacking us. That's a new thing that came to us with the Americans. So this is a traditional war club that's made out of ironwood. If you know ironwood, it's very strong wood. This is one of the old weapons, and this was used by the bravest warriors because it's hand-to-hand. It's close combat with the shield and a war club. And so there's a whole ceremony behind warfare to take care of yourself. And that's one of the things that was lacking during the American time, is we lost that ceremony to take care of men that came back from war. So we have a lot of men, even in the modern wars, where we're trying to regain a ceremony to take care of them, you know, clean them from what they've done and have them be good in the community again.
Arizona monsoons are fast approaching, with the official start of the storm season set for next month. Monsoons are notoriously difficult to predict, especially long-term forecasts, but ASU is working on a project with the U.S. Energy Department to better predict when and where a summer storm will hit. And joining us now is Vernon Morris. He's the project's lead scientist and the Associate Dean of ASU's New College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. Good to have you here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I love talking weather, love talking monsoon, and I guess I'm going to love talking Dusty AIM. What is Dusty AIM?
So Dusty AIM is an acronym, but it's an acronym that represents a large-scale data gathering campaign. And the purpose of this data gathering is to support the development of and improve model prediction of the monsoon in this region. And so we're observing meteorological variables, we're observing the dust characteristics, we're observing wind, all things about the environment that we can throughout the valley to help improve model prediction.
And you're partnering with the Department of Energy on this. How did that cooperation come into being?
Well, the Department of Energy has what's called a mobile facility, the ARM mobile facility. An ARM being another acronym, atmospheric radiation measurements, but it's really talking about the radiation from the sun drives the energy in our atmospheric system that gives us the weather. And so this mobile laboratory is available based on proposals to bring to different sites for these massive data gathering campaigns, and we won one of those proposals.
Yeah, interesting. This is at ASU West now. That's where it's based, correct?
ASU West Valley, out in Glendale.
Yeah, 43rd Avenue, somewhere there in Thunderbird, that kind of thing. All right, multi-sensors. I mean, this lab, I think we're looking at it right now. This is broken ground. What are we looking at? Look at those balloons. What's happening here?
So this, in fact, there's the inflatable hangar. These are photos or footage taken from another site that hosted the ARM facility. But these are examples of the instrumentation. The mobile laboratories are in those Connex boxes that you see there. But it's an example of the site setup.
That's happening out there.
That's happening out in West Valley right now.
So you got weather radar, obviously, but I understand ground-based lasers.
We do have lasers that are situated on the ground, facing vertical, that allow us to probe the depth of the atmosphere from the surface up to the top of the.
So if it finds out that X, Y, and Z is happening, and the result is a monsoon occurs 3 hours later, you do it again, X, Y, and Z doesn't happen, there is no monsoon, you're onto something there, huh?
Well, we take all of those observations and we put them into models and try to make sense out of the preconditions, the post-conditions that define whether or not a monsoon is going to come.
Now, and the balloons are, how many balloons and how many are launched how often are they launched?
So we have two different types of balloons. We have the tethered balloon system, and those are, that was in that inflatable hangar. Those will be connected to a winch and will be elevated up to about 4,000 feet at the max. But they'll have different heights and move up and down at different times. And they have a series of sensors on those. But at the same time, we'll be launching weather balloons that will release, and those will profile the atmosphere. Those will be 4 to 6 launches per day.
Per day?
Per day.
My goodness. So the idea is to understand, kind of a comprehensive understanding here, about everything that predates the monsoon? Do you measure what happens after the monsoon is there?
Yes, so we'll be measuring continuously for 22 months. And so we're really going to try to characterize the entire monsoon season, all of the events that happen in between, and really trying to get a feel for what the preconditions are, post-conditions, what really drives the process when it comes into this desert metropolitan region.
I'm glad you're doing it afterwards, because for years, one of the rules of thumbs used to be, back when we had monsoons, it seems like, is after you had a big old storm, the next day you would never get another storm. It seemed like everything was calm the next day. This will help explain why that occurs.
Yes, yes.
Why are monsoons so difficult to predict? I mean, we're trying to, every time I get Randy Cerveny in here from the ASU meteorologist, how kind of monsoon are we going to have? He has no answer. He does have no idea, and no one ever does. Why is that so?
Well, we have a rapidly changing environment, and we have a rapidly changing land surface as well. And so, you know, when you have that many variables that are changing at the same time, predictability becomes very difficult. If we had a static land surface, the city of Phoenix was the same today as it was 30 years ago, we'd have that as a control. And then all we have to worry about is the atmospheric variability.
Yeah, and they seem to have a mind of their own, don't they?
Both tend to have a mind of their own, and are sort of changing in ways that we have not been able to predict, and therefore we have to come in and make these measurements comprehensively to figure out what the future looks like.
Now, how long is this going to go on now, that this particular project? Is it
22 months.
22 months, okay. After 22 months, the information becomes what? I mean, does it go to the Meteorological Society? Where does it go?
So the information will be housed in a number of places, but primarily in the Department of Energy's web pages and archives, where it can be used by the entire atmospheric sciences research community. So not just ASU, and not just the partners, academic institutions that are partnering, but the entire community of scientists nationwide.
What about the community of non-scientists? Can we look at this thing and try to figure out what's going on?
Actually, you can, and we are welcoming actually community participation in this field campaign.
This is pretty exciting.
Yeah,
you must be pretty. I mean, with the monsoon coming up here shortly, you guys are gearing up, huh?
We're gearing up very fast. We want to turn everything on for the campaign on June 1. We're, I think, on track to do that. But we've got a lot of work to do.
All right. Well, we'll let you get back to work. Vernon Morris again, ASU New College Associate Dean, and the project is Dusty AIM. Learning more about, I love monsoon talk. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks.
The Black Theater Troupe is set to present a one-woman show next week titled Between Masks and Mirrors. The performance looks at the tensions between the masks that people wear and who we truly are. The show is written and performed by Tony Robinson, who returns to the local stage after a decade away from performing. And we welcome Tony Robinson to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you, and congratulations on the show. Really, congratulations on the show. You wrote it, you produced it, you perform it. It's all you, and it's all done.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about the title, Between Masks and Mirrors.
Right. So the title really looks at where we sit as human beings, right? We sit between the masks that we wear on the outside and the mirrors that reflect who we really are. So it's really inviting people to say, who am I under my external mask? And when I look at myself and I do some self-examination, am I who I want to be?
Yeah.
And are those two people the same? Because sometimes they're not.
Yeah, sometimes the mirror kind of breaks through. Doesn't it?
Yes.
And now this show consists of you becoming 5 different characters. Why did you use that particular format?
So it's a genre that I like, the one-person performance. I think for one, as a performer, it gives me an opportunity to show my range, to show, that I can be different characters. I love the ability to do that. But then the other thing is I think it gives the audience a chance to really delve into characters and to people and their stories as human beings.
Yeah. How did you come up with these 5 characters?
So that's been a journey. That has been part of my 10-year journey, is hearing people's stories, observing, listening to what people are going through, and coming into contact with individuals who have interesting stories, but then bringing in some of the ones that I've experienced and that I know as well.
Yeah, and these are males, females, different jobs and different challenges. Yeah. So you have 5 different people. Was it difficult to come up with different challenges for each one?
No, the challenges are
really
real. Yeah. The challenges were probably the easiest part to come up with. They're all in distinct scenarios. So everyone is experiencing their own challenge, and they're not related that way. But I think when I looked at who the individuals were, it was very easy to come up with the challenges that they're dealing with.
Was it difficult to become those characters with those challenges and with those masks?
So I'm becoming them a little better each day.
Wow.
Writing them is one thing, but performing them is another, because I really want to be true to who they are. I want to represent them well, and I also want to give them authentic voice.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the writing process as opposed, because oftentimes I'll talk to writers who have their books turned into movies or something. Was this what you envisioned? Yes, sometimes no, sometimes. It's kind of a strange question, but was this what you envisioned when writing?
Yes, it was what I envisioned, and I'm a first-time playwright. So that's an interesting process as well, because I've been training for that and studying and improving my skills as a writer. So it was one thing, part of the process was hearing people read my work.
Yes.
And then I heard not what I wrote, right?
Yes,
or what my
exactly.
intention was. And so now I'm working with the director. I'm not directing myself for the show. And so hearing the director's take on what I wrote is also interesting.
Are these people, and is this debuting? Have you performed this before?
No, this is the premiere.
Okay. So let's go to rehearsal then. Are they the same people every time you recite these lines and perform, even in rehearsal?
No.
And
they won't be when I perform them either.
Interesting.
Yeah. As an actor, you're in that moment and things change and you feel it differently, or the character speaks to you in a different way.
So how did the real you handle the masks and mirrors of these folks?
Yeah, so I had to dig. I had to dig deep to understand what their challenges are, understand who they really are under the mask, and ultimately, what is it they're trying to say to the audience? What is the message? So for me, it was really a journey of digging into each character, understanding who they are, why they're making the choices they're making, and the decisions they're making.
Yeah, yeah. There are interactive stations in the lobby. Something else? What's that all about?
So this is to take the experience from just being this passive experience where you go to the theater and elevating it to one that is a little bit more engaging, more interactive, more innovative. So audiences will be able to speak to the characters and tell them something.
Whoa. Stop right there. So I go out to the lobby.
You go out to the lobby.
And I see this interactive station, and you've just played character X.
Right.
And I walk up, and I say, hey, character X, what? How does that work?
So you'll leave a recording for the character. You'll say, you know, this is what I think about you, or here's my advice for you, or here's a question I have for you. They'll be able to scan QR codes and probe a little deeper and offer suggestions to the characters. So I'm hoping to take it into, it's more of a shared experience, more of a community experience, where it's not just I'm going and doing this, but really as humanity, we are sharing this and engaging in conversation.
So instead of like leaving the theater, where you leave the theater or a movie theater or whatever, you talk about the film or you talk about the play, but you walk up to one of these monitors and you talk about it, like, here's my reaction, here are my thoughts?
It's not quite a monitor, but it's a station,
A
yes.
station?
Yes.
Okay, but I mean, still.
And you will leave your thoughts, yes.
And what happens to my thoughts?
Well, your thoughts are there, recorded, and I'll get to hear them. The character will hear.
All right.
Yeah,
You're going to use people's thoughts.
No,
in some
we're
sort
not
of
using them in any way. Not at all.
What do you want the audience when they're leaving?
Yeah.
When they're, walking out 2 by 2 and they're saying, what did you think of that? What do you want them to be talking about?
I want them to talk about some of the themes that are in the show, themes of resilience, identity, truth, resilience. I also want them to feel, to have, to leave a little bit different than how they came, right? So I want them also to be involved in just examining who we are as human beings and also having a little more compassion and empathy. So those are some of the things that I really want the audience to walk away with.
Well, congratulations again. This really sounds fascinating. Real quickly now, you're back to performing after like 10 years of being away. What was that all about?
I took a break. I went in, I did some studying, I learned how to become a playwright, I learned how to perform a little better, and I'm back and better than ever.
Oh, that's great. Okay, dates and times of shows?
May 15th through the 17th, Friday and Saturday, 7:30 performances, and Sunday the 17th at 2:30 at the Black Theater Troupe.
Black Theater Troupe, again, Between Masks and Mirrors. Tony Robinson, one-woman show. Congratulations on that, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening. I like to think that at Arizona Horizon we are unique in the way that we present information, public policy, sometimes news, these sorts of things, because we have conversations, and I don't want conversations that